Hey Lucy,
What?
do you want to see a magic trick?
Yeah.
Alright, come here. Alright, I want you to hold this blanket, just like that.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah. What's that noise?
Magic! Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. How's it going, everybody? There is a project that I've been wanting to try out for the last 10 years or so, and about 10 years ago I even bought a bunch of materials to do a project similar to this, but I never actually got around to it because I got married instead. But now it's finally time to give it a try. My goal is to figure out how to make an object like a projector rise up out of its stand auto-magically. Really quick before we get started, go ahead and borrow the like button's drill and never return it, and then subscribe so you don't miss any of my future content. The first thing I needed to do was to attach the projector to a wooden base. Creating the wooden base was just so it would be a lot easier to attach everything else to it later. If you have the base that these sometimes come with, you could just use that, but in my case, it was just going to complicate things. Since I've never done any projects like this before, I decided I was just going to wing it and sort of treat this as an experiment. I really had no idea what I was doing. Once the base was installed, I decided that it needed to be much thicker, so I added another 3/4 inch piece of plywood to the underside. I didn't have any bolts long enough to go through both pieces, and I didn't want to go back to the store. These screws are a very odd size, and they're a bit hard to find. So this is called a linear actuator. I've never used one of these before, and they are so cool. If you've never used one before, the installation is almost exactly the same as any electric motor. The only thing to be aware of is you need a transformer to run it. If you have an old Xbox 360 that doesn't work, and let's be honest, if you have one, it probably doesn't work, this transformer works great for this. I'll leave a link in the description to one you can buy that works just as well. Okay, so apparently if you're ever gonna use one of these old Xbox transformers, the red wire is an extra 5-volt cable, and the blue wire is called the power enabler cable. These have to be connected together and basically complete that circuit, otherwise it won't give you any power. And the cool thing about these linear actuators and the way these switches work, since it does go in 2 different directions, these can be hooked up in any orientation. It could literally be anything. So if I end up installing this upside down or something like that, then I will probably just switch the cables around. But this is actually working, so we're gonna go with this. I decided to use the rest of the oak plywood I had left over from the pocket couch project to make the housing. Basically, I just needed a tall box that could contain the projector and the actuator. If I knew this part was gonna work so well first try, I would have tried a little harder to cover up the edges of the plywood, but honestly, I didn't know how talented that I actually was, and I just happened to get this perfect on the first try. So, lessons learned. I guess I'm just impervious to failure. Next, I needed some sort of a runner for the projector to run on, so I started making the sled. If I was going to do this project again, I would probably install some sort of a bolt with some knobs on it so I could change the angle of the projector a little bit. The way I did this means it can only point in one spot, but it does work this way. For good measure, I added some reinforcement to the runners and started on the guides. This part really isn't any different than installing a drawer. In fact, you could avoid most of this work just by using drawer glides. But I like to overcomplicate things. I put some pieces of cardboard under the sled for some spacing and then a few in the back to make it level. Then I could just glue and nail everything into place. Now that this is in here, I'm noticing it's a bit too tight, and I think it's mostly, okay, so the right side is, okay, so it's this one right here that's too tight. Let me knock that down. There we go. And then we're also gonna sand them a little bit and wax them. I needed a platform for the actuator to sit on to oppose the sled. I found it easiest just to cut a 2x6 the width of the housing and just screw it into place. This part needs to be tough enough to resist the lifting force and anything accidentally dropped on the projector in the future. If you have kids, you know what I mean. These linear actuators are really easy to install. You just screw on the brackets and pop the pins in. There's not really much to it. If all your measurements were correct, then you won't have to troubleshoot off camera for the next 30 minutes. I cut this piece of plywood to act as a switch plate, but I ended up remaking the piece out of solid oak because the first one just looked awful. Not really sure what I was thinking. Then I was able to cut out a spot for the switch with an oscillating tool. This worked out pretty well. Okay, I didn't like the way the other one looked, so I made a new one and we're just gonna install that. I'm also gonna install it a different way because I didn't like the way it was installed. I really wanted to screw the switch into place, but I didn't want to run the risk of hitting any of the circuitry inside. If anybody knows a better way to install these, please let me know. I'm not sure what the correct way to install these are, but I would say hot glue did work way better than I was expecting. Sweet. That looks so much nicer. Then we just connect the wires. Dang it. It's backwards. Then we just reconnect the wires. There we go. That's it. The camera died during the sanding process, but I sanded down the runners and waxed them so everything slid across each other easily. If you ever do anything like this, don't skip this step because this wax and the sanding is exactly why it never binds. I didn't want the lid of the box to ride on any of the plastic, so I decided to make some risers that would protect the projector. You could avoid this issue pretty easily by just attaching the lid to the box directly to the sled. Then everything would rise up together. And you would get the added bonus of the lid acting as extra protection to the projector. You might be asking, well, if it's such a good idea, then why didn't you do it that way?
Because I'm an idiot. Happy?
Instead, I decided to attach the lid using some small hinges which I had on hand, which worked out pretty well. There we go. Moment of truth.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm. Everybody stay calm.
It works! It's perfect! That's so perfect! Obviously, there are 1,000 different ways of finishing this, but I decided to just put a few layers of shellac on it. Easy peasy. I just decided to screw this to the back of the couch, but this would work out just as well as a table. One of these days, I really want to make a table with a hidden TV in it that sits behind the back of the couch. But for right now, I love the way that this one turned out. And once I ran all of the cables, I couldn't wait to show the kids. Lucy, come here.
What?
All right, check this out.
It's so loud.
It is. Check it out, and this is hooked up to our DVD player so we can watch movies on it now.
Cool.
You wanna watch a movie?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank y'all for watching, and let me know if you think I should do any more videos like this or if you have any other ideas of what I can do with these actuators. These things are awesome. Really quick, go ahead and borrow the like button's drill and never return it, and subscribe so you don't miss any of my future content. Well, thank y'all for watching. Catch y'all next time.
Yay, my favorite movie.
You like this movie?
Yeah.
Cool.
Ba 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 ba